Well, everyone, we are here at a new lake. I got a hot tip that this lake was full of trout. Now, I'm not here to catch trout, but anytime I hear trout, it makes me think of giant bass. And generally speaking, in Wisconsin at least, if you have trout, there's probably bass as well. The water generally gets warm enough where you're gonna have some bass that are probably feeding on those trout and getting nice and big and fat. So we're here at the lake, not a giant lake. I just dumped the boat in, and I know nothing about this lake. It took me a little while to get to. Nice clear lake, got some big rocks down there. So I don't know, it looks like water level for some reason is definitely increased here. As you can see, there's bushes and stuff, some laydowns. So I don't know, we'll see what happens. We don't have any electronics. Water is cold, I can tell you that. You know, right now, one of the things I'm looking for, we've been really like stuck in this turnover period. Like generally you want it to be warmer than turnover or cooler than turnover. And right now, like around my area, we've just had unseasonably warm October weather. And we're kind of stuck right in that mid 50-degree range. So one of the things I like about this lake is it's very deep, very clear, which means one of two things. We're either going to be probably warmer than turnover, or because it's a small lake, maybe we've gotten below turnover. Based on water clarity, now I don't know what it's normally like. It's pretty dang clear. So I think we'll probably be able to catch something, and we're just gonna see what we can find. I don't know what to expect, but I'm excited. So anytime I'm come to a new body of water like this, I generally like to keep it pretty simple and straightforward. You know, we're talking fall period, so I'm gonna just put a little swim bait on. I feel like that's one of your best options to generate bites. And right now, you know, if you're talking about potentially having trout around, trout really like small swim baits too. So we're gonna rig up this bait just to start as a search bait. We're just gonna throw the 3/16 ounce finesse tush, so it's a little 2/0 hook, and we're gonna slide. I got a bunch of different swim baits. I don't know what we're gonna start with. Let's start with just a 3/3 Kitech. We got some streamlined swim baits. We got some various things. I'm just gonna rig this up. You just go right through the nose, slide it right up the belly, and then just push it up over the cones, and it'll lock it in place. So you get your swim bait head will be buried inside of the swim bait. Gives it a very good lifelike profile, just like that. Different swimming action, and we're good to go. But if there's fish in here, this should give us a good idea as to what lives in here. Potentially catch a trout, potentially catch a bass, and should give us an idea. If there's big bass in here too, you know, that will be a bait that can catch them, but I also feel like we'll just get a good idea as to what the population is. I've got some bigger swim baits we can switch to if needed. So let's see what we can do. Let's see. I love this. I wish I had a depth finder to tell me how deep I was, but a swim bait's a good bait that'll let us kind of fish a bunch of different ranges. On the stop, what do we got? What is that? We got a little bass. Oh man, look how skinny he is. That is not at all a good sign. We want big chunkers. Golly, that bass is skinny. Okay, well, largemouth. There's largemouth in here. It doesn't look like he's been eating many trout, but it didn't take long. He also hit it right on the pause. I stopped it, boom. So critical. I know that fish was tiny and not what we're after, but it just never ceases to amaze me how important it is to just stop your bait or create that change of pace. If you straight retrieve it, you're missing out on some fish. Not much bigger. He's a little fatter. I guess he's a little bit more normal. Not what I was hoping for from a trout-fed bass fishery. But right now, so all I'm doing is I'm going down the brake line, and the brake line, it's real irregular. So I am looking at my Navionics chart on my phone. So I've got that. When I pull it up, you can see. So I'm following the brake lines. Where am I? So I'm following this inside brake line. Not big. Man, so I followed the brake lines. Golly, they're skinny. I followed the brake lines all the way around a good portion of the lake, and all three of my bites now have come to a point where there's a flat. Like, I mean, a lot of the brake lines are right up against the bank, and most of my bites, all three of my bites now, not that they're big, have come off some of these little flats that come out a ways, which doesn't surprise me. It's a warm, sunny day. The bass that are in here should be up on some of these flats, you know, versus being in that deeper water. I could see a lot of them pulling up on these flats, kind of sunning themselves. And on top of that, I'd be willing to bet we're in the middle of a turnover. Like, the water's got definitely a tinge to it. The grass, there's a few clumps of grass I find every once in a while that, I mean, it's all dying. It's just not in good shape. And it's just like, you feel like this lake's probably got a lot of clarity to it. And instead, right now, the water's just got a lot of tint. And I just feel like we're in the middle of turnover. You see some stuff floating around every once in a while. So, you know, that's not good for us. But I also feel like that means there's more fish that are going to want to be up shallow on these flats just based on that alone too. So, I mean, we'll keep fishing around and see what happens. Right now, I'm not thrilled by how the fish look just in themselves. But, you know, you come to a new lake, you never know what you're going to find. And we've only been here probably for 45 minutes. So it's not like it's been that long. Look at, he's chunky compared to the others. Hey. Came off that floating can. We're on a dink pattern. That's 2 for 2 in the little the old floating jugs out there. I mean, we're getting bit, not by what I want. The thing to point out here is, like, there's really not much else, I mean, that I really want to be throwing. I mean, I feel like what I'm working is fine. I think I could throw a jerkbait too. The thing is, I'm trying to cover water, and the reality is there's just not much cover. I mean, there's a few dead patches of grass, but there's not much. And now obviously not having a depth finder doesn't help me in terms of pinpointing where I'm at, but I don't feel like I'm not fishing what I should be fishing. Like I said, I'm in the turnover and the conditions. I mean, it seems like there should still be some fish up shallow, just enough to give me an idea as to, you know, quality of fish. Like, I'm not necessarily expecting to catch 5-pounder after 5-pounder, but I would think that I'd see a couple 2-pounders, 3-pounders, and by see I mean catch them or actually see them with my eyes. I've seen about the same number of fish that I've caught just swimming around, and from that standpoint, you know, I would expect to see a good one here or there, and I haven't seen anything over 12 inches, I'll say. And they don't look healthy, even the ones I see swimming. The last couple I've caught have definitely been normal quality bass, but they're not like heavy bass. Biggest of the day, not big. Right where he should be. This is the first tree. There's a couple of trees on this shoreline. I mean, that tree is so thick. It's got like a fuzz growing on it, but I feel like there should be like 6 of them, just based on there not being any other cover really that I've seen. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if there was a whole school of 12 inchers in there. Like, I fully expect to catch 17 more right here. And I'm sure they're gonna make a fool out of me, but the one nice thing with them little largemouth is they do not tear up the baits. Your little swim baits, they do not tear them up like a little smallmouth or little spotted bass. Generally, like, the smaller the bass, the easier it is to go through the swim baits. You know, the bigger ones just engulf it and don't do much damage. But I don't know, for some reason the largemouth are totally different than the smallmouth and the little spotted bass, which will just like rip your tails right off, and they can be pretty annoying. So I mean, I've caught a bunch today. I've only gone through 1 soft plastic, which is about as good as you can do when you're catching 12 inchers. Man. Well, I can tell you I'm not overly impressed, but the best thing to do with a lot of these lakes, you know, like, there's a really good chance that this could be one of those lakes that has a ton of little fish, like we're seeing. It's just, you know, that's what the bass population, 95% of them are. And then they have like these random giants that for whatever reason become the trout eaters, or just get bigger than you know, that 12-inch size. Like I have a hard time believing that there are not some 14 and 15 inchers, you know, that are very catchable for us right now that we're just not running into. So I mean, I'm sure there's some big fish. Like that's a pretty common thing in my area, where there's these little pothole lakes, and a lot of them do have trout. And it's like, you hear about some of the biggest bass in the area getting caught out of these lakes, but there's just so few big fish, you know, that you can't come out and predict to catch a bunch of numbers. But one thing that I would like to do, like, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna write this lake off completely. One thing that I would like to do is come in the spring. Like, you come in the spring, your water's at its clearest point, and you know, the majority of the population is up shallow, not necessarily spawning, but just up shallow. And this lake's got so little cover. I actually hit I don't know what that is, some form of grass, that the fish are just going to be up shallow and roaming. And I'd be able to see them very, very easily, I feel like. And that's one of the best ways, just to get a feel for what the population, not number wise, but like size wise, like you really get an idea as to if there are some big fish in the lakes. You know, there are also lakes in my area that are very stunted lakes, and you know, it's hard to catch a fish over maybe 1.5 pounds. And part of me says that could be what this lake is. So we'll see. I'll probably catch a big one right before I go in. The other thing is too, there is another lake kind of basically across the road, I guess, that, you know, I could pull out and go take a peek at that since I'm in the area, and see if that's got different kind of growth rates. But a lot of times the lakes that are clustered in the same region all fall under the same growth kind of, you know, the growth pattern. So if they're small here, a lot of times they're small in the other couple lakes if they're in the same area, kind of utilizing the same groundwater. At least that's what it seems like. We'll give it a little longer. See ya. Easy catch and release. This is where, like, mentally you get into that stage where you're just like, yep, they're all going to be little. And then when you're not ready for it, you're going to catch that, or you're going to have that 4 or 5 pounder bite. And then because you weren't ready for it, you'll be out of position or whatever, and you'll be kicking yourself. I thought for a minute might be a little bigger, but he's back to being super skinny. They should not be this skinny right now. Man. Out here there's actually a couple little pieces of, I don't know what those are, a little deer tongue. It's a pondweed. Just not ideal. Not ideal. Skinny. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of them. I know there's a lot of them. It's just not what we're after. And the thing is, like, I really like catching bass. And I mean, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. there's always just that little part of you that's like, you always want that big one mixed in, or you want to find that lake that's just full of 3-pounders. And you know, this is the risk you take anytime you're out exploring. You just never know if you're gonna find a little honey hole lake, or you find a lake that nobody talks about, and they don't talk about it for a reason. And that's part of the fun of it too, though. I mean, like, I love fishing new lakes. I love exploring. I love trying fisheries that nobody talks about, because, you know, you always feel like maybe people didn't talk about it because it was terrible 10 years ago, and maybe something happened and now it's a good fishery and nobody fishes it because it's got a reputation. And a lot of times, honestly, if you can stay ahead of the curve, you can get on lakes that are hitting its peak before anyone else knows about it. And then as soon as everyone, like, you know, the people start realizing a lake is peaking, well, at that point you've enjoyed it at its best, and it's probably just going to start going downhill from all the extra pressure. And we see that happen on little lakes in local areas, and you see it happen at big lakes and on the national levels. And that's just part of the game, lake cycle. You gotta try new bodies of water. I mean, I'm the only boat out here today. That was the only boat at the ramp. Whether that's because the lake is no good, or because it's midweek, or because it's hunting season, I don't know. I don't really care. Just having a good time. Well, guys, I think I'm gonna go check out that other lake. I don't know how many we've caught today. We've caught a bunch of fish. But since I'm in this area and I'm not over here all that much, I kind of want to explore the other lake out, check it out to see if it's a good fishery or falls in line with this this body of water. Not saying I'm gonna write it off completely. Not saying I'm in a hurry to get back here, though. I'd be so much more interested if even these little fish I was catching looked real healthy. And, you know, to me, that means there's a lot of bait fish, a lot of food for fish to get big and heavy. And, you know, even if you catch like an 18-incher, it's a 4-pounder. Right now, I feel like if I catch an 18-incher, it's going to be a 2-pounder. Just one of those things, you know. We didn't catch giants today. Caught a lot of fish. Just overall, it is what it is. Some days we catch them really good, some days we don't. Hopefully you still enjoyed it, maybe learned 1 or 2 things. If you did, how about you hit the like button or subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I could use all of the support out there, and I'm trying. I'd love to, oh, that was one in the fall. I'd love to make a push, came back for it. I'd love to make a push towards 100,000 subscribers. We're getting ready to hit 70,000. Still a long ways off, but it means a lot to me to have the support that you guys have given me. That's a pretty little bass. Anyways, well, thanks for watching me catch a bunch of these guys, and stay tuned. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow.